I hope you started hitting your stride. You've had managed to figure out your space for sitting, for walking meditation, and I know I've talked to a lot of you today, so I can see a lot of people are having very good progress in their practice. Happy to see that, and happy to see where it goes over the course of the retreat. Those of you who've not managed to check in with me, please block some time for tomorrow. The check-ins are very important. They're also very an important element of this practice because the progress can be tracked quite well, right? So when you start with the practice, where you're going. So one, the issues that you may be facing in the practice can be tracked well, and secondly, your progress can be tracked well, and changes can be suggested, which will help you get deeper. So these one-on-one check-ins are quite important. So do get them in. I think barring one or two people, most of you have managed to have that conversation with me today. Great. So we will continue with the topic that we started yesterday. We were talking about distractions. We'll be unpacking that a little bit more, and then we'll go into deeper and more involved concepts through the rest of the retreat. The idea is to be able to start understanding the mechanisms, the processes of the mind, to first have an intellectual understanding of it through our discussion, and then to be able to see it in your own practice, because there is nothing that will substitute the experiential learning that you have, the way you see phenomena happen in your own mind. That will be the real and most valuable learning. But the discussions that we have, the frameworks that we understand, the process of the mind that we discuss will help your mind in understanding where to look and what to look for. Okay. So we'll continue with the topic of distractions. I will start today with a brief reading from a part of sutta. So there will be two or three different snippets of suttas that I'll be reading. So the first one that I'll be using is an excerpt from the Sattipatthan Sutta. So this is the 10th of the middle length discourses of the Buddha. I'm using Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation, one of the better translations of the Majjhima Nikaya. And this is also the basis for a lot of the modern meditation practice. The Vipassana movement has derived very heavily from this one sutta. The twin practice is actually derived from the entire Majjhima Nikaya. So it is not, it is from the same source. It looks at this sutta as well as part of the understanding that is to be developed. Okay, so I'll start with this small section that where the Buddha talks about understanding mental phenomena. Okay, and he talks in terms of the five hindrances. This is another name for distractions. The Sanskrit or Pali name is Nivaran. Nivaran can be thought of as an obstacle or something that comes in the way of your progress. Okay, but these are also referring to the kind of distractions that we have, the different things that our mind gets stuck in. And how does a student abide contemplating mental phenomena as mental phenomena? The word mind objects is also used. The original Pali or Sanskrit word is Dhamma that is used here. I did mention yesterday that Dhamma can be used in different contexts. It's definitely not religion, which may be the way a lot of us have been conditioned to understand the word Dharma. In the Buddha's teaching, it can refer to the natural law of mental phenomena, mental experience. It can be used to refer to the teaching of those laws of that understanding, and it can also be used to describe mental phenomena, okay? Mind objects or mental phenomena. And how does a student abide contemplating mental phenomena as mental phenomena? Here, a student abides contemplating mental phenomena as mental phenomena in terms of the five hindrances or distractions. What this classification will break down further, we'll discuss a little bit more. And how does the student abide contemplating mental phenomena as mental phenomena in terms of the 5 hindrances? Here, there being greed in him, a student understands there is greed in me. Or there being no greed in him, he understands there is no greed in me. And he also understands how there comes to be the arising of unarisen greed, and how there comes to be the abandoning of the arisen greed, and how there comes to be the future non arising of the abandoned greed. So let's unpack this a little bit. First is understanding. So this is coming from mindfulness. There is an understanding that my attention, my mind is now involved with something with a flavor of greed. I like it. I want it. Okay. So something that we want, something that we feel is very important for us to have. So that feeling is described as greed or sensual desire. So the first understanding is that the attention is engaged with that, the mind has greed in it. Or if there is nothing of this quality, this flavor, he understands there is no greed in me. What also he understands is how there came to be the arising of unarisen greed. So there was a point where there was no greed, and then there was a point where the greed arose. How did this process happen? How there comes to be the abandoning of arisen greed, and how there comes to be the future non arising of abandoned greed. So, if we go back to our definition of mindfulness, we we have mentioned in the prep kit, a lot of definitions go around for mindfulness. People talk about choiceless, non judgmental awareness of the contents of consciousness. But what the Buddha is also talking about is understanding how attention is engaged with that. How does the attention move from a point of non greed, point of being with the object, to a point of greed? How that arose, not being there, you were with your object of meditation, there was no thought related to greed over there, and at some point it arose. So, how did the arising happen? How did the abandoning of that happen? So, two things can happen. Either it can be a background distraction, you don't end up feeding your attention to it, and it goes off on its own. You'll find a lot of things. Yesterday, we had a comment about music playing and that music going away on its own unless it is actively engaged with, right? So there can be an abandoning of this greed due to inattention or wise attention being paid, that is not getting involved with it, not getting engaged with it, not getting personally attached with it. And how there comes to be the future non-arising of greed. So if with the starving of attention or with the use of the 6R. So if our attention does get engaged in it, if we end up using the 6R, we relax, we recognize that our attention is engaged with this. We decide not to go ahead, not to follow it, not to fight it, let it be. We relax the tension and tightness in our mind. Tension and tightness is a symptom of craving. It is the mechanism that attaches our attention with a particular thought. After that, we smile, start moving our mind towards a wholesome state, and return to the object of meditation. So with this, with the letting go of it, there comes the future non-arising. So this may arise again a few times, the same thought, the same particular thing that took your attention away with the flavor of greed, the same thought process. As we use the 6Rs, remember the repeat step. As we use it again and again, at some point, the urgency, the taking it personally in that starts getting extinguished, and that results in future non-arising of that greed. So these are the things in terms of attention that we are absorbing, how attention moves to this, how we are with the object of meditation. You can think about mindfulness in 4 parts. Where is my attention now? How is it engaged? Is it engaged with craving, with tension and tightness, or is it engaged with effortless ease? Okay. The third thing, you can start understanding what are the things that are vying for this attention. What are the things in the peripheral field of awareness that are vying for the attention? And if your attention does go after them, you can also understand the movement of attention. Similarly, the Buddha talks about four other flavors of distractions or hindrances, and we'll talk about these more. There being ill will in him, a student understands there is ill will in me, or you can call this aversion. Or there being no aversion in him, he understands there is no aversion in me, and he also understands how there comes to be the arising of unarisen aversion, and how there comes to be the abandoning of arisen aversion, and how there comes to be the future non-arising of abandoned aversion. And similarly, for three more types of distraction. Okay, we'll, like I mentioned, we'll talk more about this. There being sloth and torpor. Sloth and torpor. Some of you may have noticed in your practice that sometimes there may be a little bit of dullness. You may be ho-humming about. You're not really paying attention to the object. You're not paying attention to the distractions. You're just kind of floating in there. And the same thing may happen in daily life as well. There is something that needs to be done. You're procrastinating. You're being lazy about it. Sloth and torpor, and lack of energy, listlessness. Okay. Then comes the next. There being restlessness and remorse, a feeling of not being at ease, right? Wanting, needing something to be done, not being at ease. The feeling that I've missed out something. Something needs to be done. I have to start planning for the next task. That is another flavor of distraction. And finally, a very interesting one, there being doubt, a lack of confidence, a lack of courage to apply yourself, to go on that little adventure of seeing what really happens. Right? Taking a step back, just deciding that I may not be able to do this, or continuously second guessing oneself. There being doubt in him, a student understands there is doubt in me, or there being no doubt in him, he understands there is no doubt in me. And he understands how there comes to be the arising of unarisen doubt, and how there comes to be the abandoning of arisen doubt, and how there comes to be the future non-arising of abandoned doubt. In this way, he abides contemplating mental phenomena as mental phenomena internally, externally, or he abides contemplating mental phenomena as mental phenomena both internally and externally. Or else he abides contemplating in mental phenomena their nature of arising, or he abides contemplating their nature of vanishing, or their nature of both arising and vanishing. Or else mindfulness that there are mental phenomena is simply established in him to the extent necessary for bare knowledge and mindfulness. So we don't need to go chasing after each of the distractions, getting into why this came, right? So we are not going into the story of that. We are simply understanding that these have arisen, these have passed away. And he abides independent, not clinging to anything in the world. This is how a student abides contemplating mental phenomena as mental phenomena in terms of the five hindrances. So this was a passage from the Sattipatthan Sutra. Okay. Now I'll just we'll go through a couple of things, and then we'll go to a couple of more snippets. Let me just get to the Okay, I hope you're able to see the screen. Okay, so we will go through this in greater and greater detail every day. So bear with me if you find some part of it repetitive, but this is the single link, this link of your mind going from one thing to another. This is the single link that is replicated again and again and constitutes your experience of life. So what's happening? You have a field of attention and your object is of meditation, sending metta, sending that feeling to your friend or to yourself is front and center in there. What happens next? In a little while, the distraction comes, it's there in the background. We keep it in the field of attention, we start paying a bit of attention to the distraction, and in a while, your object fades away. One thing that we need to look at. So the Buddha talks about understanding the arising and passing away of these distractions, right? One of the things that is most important for us to understand is that the distraction is a impersonal phenomenon. So we'll get more into this exactly what is the mechanism, why is it impersonal, and how it actually gets us from the object to the distraction. But the first thing that we need to understand at this point of time is start recognizing that we did not choose to bring that distraction up. It's not something we planned. That 2 minutes into my sitting, I'm going to start thinking about something else. This is impersonal and unintentional. It has come about because the conditions are right for it. Maybe there is an urgency to the thought that has come up. Maybe it is related to a conversation you had just before sitting. Maybe it is related to something you have to do right after your meditation. Maybe it is something to do with something that has been very close to your heart, painful, or something that you wanted for a long time. It could be a painful memory, it could be a very pleasant memory, it could be something that you've, for example, desired for a long time. You did not ask for it to come up. It came up because the conditions were right. The way your mind is, the way your mental states are right now are conducive for it to come up. Why did it stay? Why do some things come in the background and go away? Why does this stay in the attention? Why does our attention go to this? That is because of craving. Craving is the mechanism that makes anything personal, right? Now, the other thing that I wanted to just highlight is the attitude we have towards distraction. So distractions are not something to fear. It's not a poor performance if your mind or attention gets into a distraction. It is simply an opportunity. What is it an opportunity for? It is an opportunity for us to understand where our attachments lie. Anything that is coming up during our practice is something that we take personally. We have attached a certain amount of importance to it. We have attached a flavor of liking or disliking. Again, this is a craving is something that can be described as the I like it or I don't like it mind. So flavor of liking or disliking has been attached to it. It can be related to unresolved issues, things that we need to take action on, or things that we simply need to accept and move on with. These are unresolved. Our mind spends a significant amount of bandwidth going through that. If there is an action to be taken, we need to identify what it is and take it. Till then, it will continue to be unresolved. And sometimes there will be things from that are in the past, for instance, right? So things where you need to forgive, things where you need to simply accept what has happened. In those cases, there is no action that you have to take other than actually bring in acceptance in your mind that this is something that was important. This is something I cannot do anything more about. This is something there is no use for me to continue ruminating. It also tells us what the tendency of our mind is. You can get a lot of sense of how restless or calm your mind state is currently based on the way distractions are coming up. And the last thing that it teaches that we discussed in the sutta that we discussed again with the previous slide was it is helping us to understand how mind's attention is moving from one thing to another. This one link, when we understand this one movement that we understand, we can start understanding the entire experience of our life. And one way to think about distraction is as if they are our teachers because they're teaching us a bunch of things, or we can think of them as a personal trainer who's asking us to do one more round of using our mindfulness and using the 6 hours or harmonious practice to come back. So every time we use, you may have certain sittings that are very busy, have a lot of distraction, but using the 6 hours, recognizing, letting that be, relaxing the tension and tightness in your mind, smiling and coming back. Every time you're doing that, you're strengthening your ability to be mindful in daily life or in your next session. And you're strengthening how automatically or how quickly you're able to use harmonious practice to come back and not go chasing after or fighting with the distraction. So it's all going in the bank. Don't get worried if one sitting feels different from another or feels more restless than the next one. I also wanted to touch upon the 5 flavors of distraction that the Buddha talked about in the excerpt, right? He talked about greed, aversion, restlessness, sloth, and doubt. One of the exercises I would like you to do is start identifying what are the different habitual patterns, different rabbit holes in your experience that are related to these types of distraction. So let's just quickly look at some of them and some examples that may jog your ability to think through this, right? So greed is about something that you really want. So it may be a particular holiday, it may be a promotion that you want at work, it may be a new car that you're looking to buy, it may be the romantic interest. It may be related to something as simple as food or any kind of addiction, right? Wanting to watch Netflix or wanting to uh, consume alcohol or cigarettes or whatever. So that can be looked at as a flavor of greed. And everything doesn't need to be neatly bucketed. There will be a lot of things that will, a lot of your rabbit holes that will have the flavor of different types of uh, distractions, right? So that can be looked at as greed. Aversion can be something that comes up about, it could be related to something that happened in the past, something someone said to you, something someone did that undermined you or blocked your ability to get something that you wanted. So aversion can be related to that. Doubt, like I mentioned, can be related to your practice. Am I doing the 6 hours correctly? Am I generating metta correctly? Just go with it. It's like riding a bike. You will feel uncertain in the beginning, but you'll get confident as you go forward. Or it could be doubt in other things, right? So people have doubts about whether they're taking the right career choices, whether they, they're living in the right city or not, whether they're in the right kind of relationship or not. So they keep doubting themselves, right? So doubt is another flavor. Restlessness is something that we see a lot. For instance, many of you may have heard phantom rings or phantom vibrations of your phone, right? You're expecting something to happen and you may imagine, or you may end up actually checking your phone even if there is no notification that you're imagining because you're expecting there to be some information that is useful, some information that is going to make a change or a difference to your life. Okay? So restlessness can be looked at as that flavor, and sloth, I think everybody will be familiar with. So it may be related to getting down to sit or taking interest in your object of meditation. It may be related to postponing something that you've been wanting to do for a long time, procrastinating something that absolutely needs to be done, right? So try to see what are the different rabbit holes that you have, where they fit in this scheme of things. And I'll use 2 more excerpts from the Buddha that will talk about some of the advice that he has given, which also kind of aligns with the 6 hours in terms of dealing with greed and aversion, and some of the advice that is given in terms of dealing with restlessness and sloth. So I'll read another excerpt. Okay, this is from the 20th sutta from the same collection, the middle length discourses of the Buddha, called Vitakkasanthana Sutra, removal of distracting thoughts. Okay. Here, students, when a student is giving attention to some sign and owing to that sign there arise in him evil, unwholesome thoughts connected with greed, with aversion, and with delusion. Delusion is taking things personally, not seeing that it is something impersonal that has come up. Then he should give attention to some other sign connected with what is wholesome. When he gives attention to some other sign connected with what is wholesome, then any evil, unwholesome thoughts connected with greed, aversion, and delusion are abandoned in him and subside. With the abandoning of them, his mind becomes steadied internally, quieted, brought to unity, and collected. Just as the skilled carpenter or his apprentice might knock out, remove, and extract a coarse peg by means of a fine one. So too, when a student gives attention to some other sign connected with what is wholesome, his mind becomes steadied internally, quieted, brought to unity, and collected. So this is something that we do with metta, with loving kindness, right? So when we have a distraction, we are using that fine peg, that wholesome feeling of metta to displace what is uh, leading us to thoughts of greed or aversion. Second strategy he talks about, if while he's giving attention to some other sign connected with what is wholesome, there still arises in him evil, unwholesome thoughts connected with greed, aversion, and delusion. Then he should examine the danger in those thoughts. These thoughts are unwholesome, they result in suffering. When he examines the dangers in these thoughts, then any unwholesome thoughts connected with greed, aversion, and delusion are abandoned in him and subside. So here the Buddha is talking about recognizing. Right? So when we recognize, we understand that our mind tends to go into these rabbit holes and we come out having not become any wiser, not having decided any course of action, just burned some time and burnt a lot of blood along with it, right? So we have heartburn, we feel frustrated when we come out of it eventually. So the student should examine the danger. So when we recognize that this is a thought that is taking my attention away from a wholesome state, it is got tension and tightness in it. It's a sign of craving. It's a sign that I have some outcome attached to it, right? So even if I get that outcome, then either my mind moves to the next outcome that I would want, or it starts wanting to protect that outcome. So if this has happened now, it should always be with me, or it should be in a certain way. And if it doesn't happen, then there is a suffering that is related to that. I wanted this outcome, but this outcome didn't happen. This is unsettling. This is dissatisfactory for me. So recognizing that going further into this thought process is actually going to result in dissatisfaction for me. That is one strategy that the Buddha talks about. If while he's examining the danger in these thoughts, there still arise in him unwholesome thoughts connected with greed, aversion, and with delusion, then he should try to forget those thoughts and should not give attention to them. When he does not give attention to them, then any unwholesome thoughts connected with greed, aversion, and delusion are abandoned in him and subside. With the abandoning of them, his mind becomes steadied internally, quieted, brought to unity, and collected. So this is interesting. The Buddha in the previous sutta that we discussed talked about understanding how the future non-arising happens, right? So one of the ways is not giving attention. So the attention with craving is the fuel for your mind to get stuck in a rabbit hole. And we'll work more and more with this, understanding this mechanism deeply and understanding how to diffuse it and understanding what implications it has for our understanding of life. Right? Okay, so that was the third strategy. This is similar to the release step that we use. We let it be. We don't engage with it. We neither chastise ourselves for our getting caught up in that distraction, nor do we start following it. Nor do we say that, okay, I'm not thinking about anything else. This is something that bothers me. Let me now go deep into it. Let me think more about it. None of that. We don't give it our attention and it subsides automatically. If while he's trying to forget these thoughts and is not giving attention to them, to them. There still arise in him unwholesome thoughts connected with greed, aversion, and delusion. Then he should give attention to relaxing the thought formation of those thoughts. So this is the other strategy that we use, the relaxation. So what is the thought formation has its or the thought sanskar has its correlate in the tension and tightness that we feel in our that is tangible to us, that we're feeling in our mind and body. So we should give attention to stilling or relaxing that tension and tightness. When he gives attention to stilling and relaxing the thought formation of those thoughts, then any unwholesome thoughts connected with greed, aversion, and delusion are abandoned in him and subside. With the abandoning of them, his mind becomes steadied internally, quieted, brought to unity, and collected. So this was the other excerpt. So the different strategies of the 6 R's that we do in continuation. So the Buddha talks about understanding that following this distraction that has come up, that has hijacked our attention away, is just another rabbit hole. It's not going to lead to any satisfactory outcome. If that understanding is not sufficient, then you deprive it of your attention. If still somehow the craving, the attachment to it is so strong that it continues to occupy your attention, then you start relaxing the tension and tightness that is involved in it. And the first strategy that he talked about, using the wholesome to replace the unwholesome. We smile and return, getting our mind to a state of sending metta to our friend. So this is the strategy that the Buddha gives for dealing with distraction. Okay, let me get back to slide. I think I've opened this. Okay, so that was the strategy for dealing with greed and aversion. So that's a strategy that works well. 6 R's work well with restlessness and sloth and torpor as well. But there are additional things that we can use to combat or to deal with restlessness and sloth and torpor. So these are known as the awakening factors. Just something, these are tools that we'll end up using as our mind goes deeper. I fully expect a lot of you to be sitting more than an hour, your mind going into extremely deep spaces, being able to sit for multiple minutes without having any thoughts come up in your mind. And as we get there, we'll start using these factors more and more. But these are some things that are used for working with restlessness and sloth. And these can be used not just during the practice, but in daily life as well. Just wait for this to load. Okay. So I've put this as a seesaw because just like greed and aversion are counterparts of each other, right? So greed is related to the I like it mind. Aversion is related to I don't like it mind, right? Or you can say I like the absence of this thing, right? So greed and aversion are related to each other. Of the other two hindrances, other than doubt, restlessness and sloth and torpor are both also related to each other. Just for a sense, so restlessness is a stimulation seeking behavior. So we talked about the examples of continuously checking your phone or infinite scrolling that we begin to do. We start looking at different things that are happening. We start checking the news. We start checking the stock market prices, whatever happens. So it's a stimulation seeking behavior. And sloth typically happens as a result of stimulation fatigue. So when your mind has been looking at a lot of information, not really found anything that is fundamentally useful or fundamentally helping you make progress, your mind starts becoming dull. So the more stimulus come, it continues looking at stimulus, but there is no interest, there is no attention. Your awareness is low, and your understanding of it is low. So restlessness and sloth are related to each other, and you have a bunch of factors that you can use to balance between them. So if you're too restless, your mind will go after distractions and will always be engaged with the story of the distraction. If you have sloth, on the other hand, you may not go after the distraction, but you are not really observing the movement of your mind. You are just slowly drifting between the object and some other distractions that are coming up. So when sloth arises, what should we use? Along with this, I'll just start also. So there are three factors here. So mindfulness is the central factor. It is, you can think of it as the fulcrum. Without mindfulness, you do not register that your mind is getting restless or that your mind is getting lazy and dull. So mindfulness is the first and most important awakening factor. Now, for dealing with sloth, there are three awakening factors. The first is joy, bringing joy into what you're doing. So you can bring your smile up, feel completely free to laugh at how silly and uncooperative your mind is. Like you just had a simple task to send loving kindness to myself or to a friend, but we think about everything under the sun. So we can have a laugh at it, and sending the loving kindness itself is a source of generating joy or preeti in your mind, right? So this is one tool that we have to combat sloth, to combat dullness, and again, it can be used in your practice or it can be used in daily. Second thing is energy or virya. That's the word in Pali. Energy has to do a lot with having some interest in your object, being earnest in sending that wish to your friend, earnest in sending that wish to yourself, not just, okay, let me half-heartedly send that wish, right? So earnestness, a determination to actually explore your mind and make progress in your understanding, right? So that's where the energy comes from. And finally, curiosity. So being curious in understanding how attention moved, right? Trying to catch it earlier and earlier. You find yourself caught in the middle of a story. Okay, you're right bang in the middle of the story, and suddenly you realize, oh, I actually sat down to meditate. Why am I thinking about this? Now try to be more curious. Try to figure out how exactly did my mind go from sending that loving kindness to my friend to this point. What was that process? What were the intermediate steps? So that curiosity, that it's also called investigation factor. Right? This is called Dhamma Vichaya. So investigation or curiosity. So these three things can help you deal with sloth, dullness, laziness, disinterest, listlessness. Okay, it can help you with that. Mindfulness, like I mentioned, is the central part. Without mindfulness, you don't understand whether your attention is listless or it is restless, right? And what happens when your mind starts getting very restless? What are the factors that you use? First factor is equanimity. Simply understanding that any distraction coming up is simply a reflection of the mind. It is neither good nor bad. It's not something for me to chase after. It's not something for me to beat with a stick. It's not something for me to commit violence against. Right? It simply is. Just having that understanding. A lot of restlessness comes from the fact that many times we start having aversion. As soon as something we have a distraction, we start judging ourselves. We start having aversion. So equanimity makes sure that we don't have that aversion. Similarly, equanimity also helps us not to get too attracted or about thinking about a certain topic, certain chain of thought, and getting invested in it. Equanimity says this has come up, this is what it is. Right? It helps us. It's that attitude. It helps us understand that. Tranquility, tension and tightness is always related with craving. So restlessness is happening because there is a craving for more information, more stimulation. It will always be accompanied with a manifestation of tension in the mind and body, relaxing any tension and tightness in our mind and body. So you may feel at some time right before you're about to break your sitting, you may feel this restlessness. So you can use both these factors, right? You can understand that it is simply something that has come because the conditions are right for it, and you can relax the tension and tightness. There will definitely be tension and tightness accompanying that. You can relax that. That will help reduce the restlessness in your mind. And finally, collectedness. An intention to stay with the object. Keep your mind on the object. Keep your object in the center of your field of attention. Staying with sending that feeling of goodwill to your friend. So this is a set of tools that you can use for restlessness and sloth, both in your practice as well as daily life. And use the 6 hours in the case of restlessness, in the case of sloth, in the case of doubt, in the case of greed, in the case of aversion. These tools are more useful when you see that restlessness is continuing to arise multiple times. It is not related to a particular thought. In greed, in aversion, you will probably find yourself revisiting the same chain of thought. Why did that person say this to me? Or when will I get this thing that I want? Right? You'll keep going back to that. You can understand that. You can keep using the 6 hours. You can diffuse that. Restlessness and sloth are kind of nameless terrorists in that way. So you can go chasing after one thing and then the other, then the next, or you will become completely listless about everything. So it's useful to use these factors to combat restlessness and sloth. I'll be sharing this on the WhatsApp group, so you can take it easy on the notes that you want to take. So I'll just stop there, and I would like to hear any thoughts, any reactions, any questions that are coming up from your daily practice or from the discussion that we have had today. How are things starting to fit in? So the idea of suttas, the way the Buddha taught through discourses, is that he would start teasing one topic, one aspect of one thing, right? So he never said, okay, this is the entire syllabus. I'm going to explain everything to you in one. So there are different threads that look at different aspects of understanding mind, and they'll be going horizontally and vertically and come together to form that fabric of understanding. So what we discussed today may trigger something that you experienced yesterday or that you have thought about before. Feel free to share that or bring up questions related to that. Yes, please go for it, Bharat.
Uh, so, I mean, I was trying to understand basically, I mean, just gathering my thoughts around the strategies that you just discussed for fighting or combating these 5 distractions. And I mean, largely all of it is 6 hours from in a summary. But
Yes,
I mean, in terms of sloth, there is one I mean, there's a concept of investigation, which at least so far in my practice I've not done, right? My my task is to focus back on like what's on the meta or the object. Um, so under what I mean, how does one figure out that you need to like get into this distractive thought right now rather than going back to
so for now, I would just suggest using the 6 hours. Keep this in your mind. So, like I said, some experience you may be struggling a lot with restlessness or with sloth. Whereas normally, you may not even find the opportunity to label what is happening, right? But the fact that, so like I said, so we are trying to. So you think about exploring a city, right? So you've never seen it before. You know about some of the landmarks, okay? And you're now moving through that territory, and the landmarks maybe clustered together. The first day you notice two of them. The next day you notice that the same place also has these three other landmarks that you've heard about, right? So these are things that in your practice you will start seeing. So don't be in a hurry to apply all of these, right? So these are just seeds that are being planted. At the right time you will know how to use them, right? So just the idea is we look at our experience in terms of stories, right? So this is what happened, this is what I did, and these stories are very macro level. They are loaded with narrative manipulation, right? We make a story according to what suits us, right? So now we are trying to understand exactly what is happening, like what are the steps. We are trying to get farther and farther away from storytelling and actually seeing what are the things that are happening. So these things in your mind will start at some point in your sitting. It may not happen with every distraction, but you'll understand, okay, this is a, this is simply greed that is coming up, right? And why is this important? So once you start seeing this in your practice, you will also start. Your distractions are giving you an idea of where your attachments lie. You're also getting a flavor of what is happening, right? And you understand that simply greed is simply being attached to a certain outcome, right? I want that outcome, and I have in my mind I have computed that if this outcome happens, then I will be happy, right? So it's a goal oriented thinking. You start understanding that it's simply greed that is actually dictating a huge set of actions, a huge set of time that I spent, right? You can start tracing those things, that what is the underlying motivation, what is the mental model that I've used to justify that motivation and to understand that, right? So that's the idea. So don't be in a hurry to start using all of these, but sometime you may find that your mind is becoming listless, right? And you may suddenly realize that all I need to do is smile. Okay. So these things will automatically appear to you, right? You can review it once. During your practice, you need to keep it simple. Every time your mind goes into a distraction, use the 6 hours. The 6 hours contains everything in the Eightfold Path, everything that it is, again, like it's something that uh, captures the essence of the Buddha's teaching. So it is a very, very effective technique. But over time, you'll find the need to refine this. And the more things, the subtle nuances that you can start understanding, that much richer will be your uh, ability to work through different situations or apply this understanding to different situations. So just let it be for the moment. Your mind will automatically, once it starts getting more familiar with what's coming up, what is happening right now, where is my attention, what is the nature of my attention, it will automatically remember, maybe this is something I can use. Okay. And especially with restlessness and sloth, like I said, they are nameless terrorists, right? So you'll keep using the 6 hours. Okay, you might have a flurry of different things that are coming up, but you don't identify it restlessness. Every time you see a distraction, you use it. And maybe your mind will just remember, maybe all I need to do is just relax. Just I think I really need to relax, or I really need to stop getting gaslit by the things that are coming up, right? So I just need to have equanimity. So you might remember it, even if you don't. 6 hours is what you need to remember. Don't try to overthink your practice.
Thank you.
Great. Anyone else with a thought or a question? Okay, great. So I'll just talk about very quickly, spend a minute, just talking through the exercise. I've already mentioned this. So try to identify habitual thought patterns that you have or rabbit holes for each of the types of distraction: greed, aversion, restlessness, doubt, sloth. Okay. And you can think about this in your, for example, the factors that we talked about. You can also think about how you can apply it during your daily life, right? So you have a restlessness to check information. So how can you use equanimity, tranquility to deal with that, right? Or if there is sloth, you're feeling lazy, procrastinating something, how can you use joy, energy, and a curiosity to understand why, what is that laziness about? Why is it that my attention is ho-humming about something that is obviously important to do, right? So you can use the awakening factors, maybe not in your meditation, allow that to come to you as your mind starts to get more mindful, starts to understand your distractions and the move activity that's happening in your mind in better granularity, but you can also use it in daily life. So I'll just share this exercise as well. I would also recommend, try using the 6 hours for one of each of these types of distractions, right? 6 hours and awakening factors, use it for those specific habitual reactions in daily life, right? Not just in the meditation. Great. So I'll just share the screen again. We will share Merit and I will catch all of you on the interview tomorrow and the group meditation in the morning and then interviews tomorrow. So I found that trying to do this at the same time suffers extremely from internet lag. So what we can do is I'll speak one line and the rest of you can repeat after that, or we can all be on mute and I can read out the sharing Merit. Right? It's really difficult on the remote environment to do this. Okay, so those who feel inclined, you can join in. Just repeat after me. Okay. May suffering once be suffering free,
May suffering ones be suffering free,
and the fear struck fearless be.
and the fear struck fearless be.
May the grieving shed all grief,
May the grieving shed all grief,
and may all beings find relief.
and may all beings find relief.
May all beings share this merit that we have thus acquired
May all beings share this merit that we have thus acquired
for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness.
for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness.
May enlightened beings of mighty power share in this merit of ours.
May enlightened beings of mighty power share in this merit of ours.
May they long protect the Buddha's dispensation.
May they long protect the Buddha's dispensation.
Sadhu, sadhu.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.